Now then, you're welcome along. US PGA starts tomorrow in the golfing world, second major of the year. We have Tiger, Rory and Spieth as the marquee group across Thursday and Friday. We will be over to Southern Hills this hour. Jeff Shackelford, golfing journalist of some renown, is with us. He's been following Tiger, for instance, over the last couple of days. On Wednesday night rugby, Fiona Hayes and Keane Tracy with us just after 8 o'clock. Lots to discuss in the football show. Dan McDonnell will be there. He's also here. Dan.
I am here.
Here for the night.
Pleasure to be, Joe.
You've had a busy day, as we'll come to in just a moment. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Cathal Dennehy is in studio for the Newsround as well. Hey, Cathal, how you doing?
How's it going?
Cathal Dennehy was on the show last night. Cathal Mullaney is with us
I'll
this
take
evening.
it as a compliment.
I'm calling people the wrong name left, right and centre
It happens,
lately.
Joe. I think that's just, as you know, people used to mock Jack Charlton and various people, but I mean, you look back in time and Jack Charlton was probably only 51 or 52 or something like that. Just our conception of time is that they were far older. So, like, effectively, we're on the way there.
I called Mark Nolan in the intro to Monday's show. I was listening to Cathal Dennehy last night with Johnny.
There you go.
And here we are with another call. How can I be expected to keep up with these things? My
easy.
apologies. Cathal Mullaney with us here for the news round. I suppose we should start down with the big talking point, and I suspect, Cathal, it's in your news round. So we might just skip ahead. You can bring us the very dramatic news surrounding the League of Ireland this afternoon.
Yeah, so the FAI says it remains committed to a zero-tolerance policy on match fixing. It comes after 10 men were arrested in connection with alleged match fixing in the League of Ireland. The men, who range in ages from their 20s to their 60s, were detained this morning following raids in Dublin, Cork and Limerick. It was part of Operation Brookweed, a 3-year investigation by the Anti-Bribery Corruption Unit and the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau. The FAI added it will be making no further comment as it's a legal matter.
Dan, I suspect you've been working on this story all afternoon.
Yeah, like first thing, well, it was early this morning when this all started, and of course, you're in a million sort of like WhatsApp groups or something where this is a source of discussion. Now, the thing is, like, it's and I've been writing about this today. It's not like there's a sense of, unfortunately, it's not as if there's a massive sense of shock and surprise here. This is as the FAI statement sort of mentions today, it's effectively, it's a continuation of a previous case and a probe that was, which dates back to 2019. And again, you have to be very careful with this because it's a legal case that is at the early stages. We don't know where it will go. All people involved are sort of, very much, they'll be, I guess, fighting their own case, and we're conscious of this. But from my understanding, you're talking about, of the sort of 10 arrested, you're talking about 7 who would have played in the league. Now the majority of them are no longer active in the league, but some of them are. So that in itself is obviously a very, it's a troubling story for people with a love for the game and involved in the game, because we can talk about the detail and I can write about the detail, and people in discussion, people with an awareness who want to debate the topic can go into the detail. But as you know how these things work, a lot of people maybe first thing this morning will just hear the news headlines and hear match fixing, League of Ireland, and then that sort of stench and that stigma is sort of attached to it. And that is why the FAI are on about a zero tolerance approach, and that's all they can apply if allegations are proven on this. So it is one of those things that we've discussed this on the show before. We've probably covered this area before because there were cases in the past involving various clubs, some of which went the distance, some of which didn't. There is no doubt that, and these are historic games that we were talking about. However, you can't be too sort of complacent about the present day either. There is certainly, when you have a league where people don't earn a huge amount of money, but it is possible to stake huge amounts of money and win huge amounts of money on games in that league, which is a problem that's felt by leagues all around the world. We've seen it in the lower leagues in England. We've seen it at all variety of levels. Then unfortunately there's always a danger that you're open to some degree of manipulation or for these things to happen. That doesn't excuse it. That's not sort of given some kind of free pass. It's like, well, they're not paid that much, and they're not on big contracts, so whatever. Like, you're talking about the integrity of the game, and you're talking about from my general awareness and speaking very broadly of these stories as well, you're not really talking about entire teams, as though it's sort of some big collective effort where like every member and staff and everyone is on board with some kind of plot. These allegations generally tend to centre around smaller number of players operating within a group, which means that really they're not just you're talking about I suppose behaviour towards even your own teammates and your own club and employers at times, so there's a lot to it, but it's a worrying subject.
Well, it sure is. And when you say it's not so much the present day, I mean, when these allegations date back to 18-19 matches, that's very close to the
I think
day.
I think it is.
That as present day.
No,
really.
I'm sorry, I'm not even. Yeah, I'm just saying that at the moment, I think there's a danger that some people can find some solace in that, but you can't be like,
2018-19.
Yeah,
that's
it's
present day.
It's very present day.
It's not historic.
I do think it goes back a little bit further, this one, to games in the years prior to that, but certainly that's part of it. Yeah.
So 10 arrests and age range early 20s right through to 60s. I was reading. A number of residential properties searched in southern regions and Dublin regions as part of this, and it was the FAI and UEFA who reported the alleged match fixing. And as you said, the FAI released a short statement today to note the latest developments in the Garda inquiry into alleged match fixing. Do we know of the alleged match fixing? Because match fixing is an umbrella term. So are we talking about results allegedly being manipulated, or are we talking about things like who wins the first corner or who has the most throw-ins, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think, again, just to be careful about sort of the specific details of this case, but from my understanding, certainly it's not about one market, like the winning or the losing of a game. You could be talking about you could have situations where it's, say, both teams to score, for example, which could be a situation whereby a team actually may win the game, a team where individuals are being under scrutiny. They might actually have won a particular game, but they've conceded a goal in that game. Mm-hmm. And again, like, speaking very generally, we've seen in a number of sports in recent years where, there was a scandal in cricket related to, like, no balls being thrown, and various other indiscretions. Like, I watched something recently on sort of one of the streaming services about a college basketball thing in the 1990s, which was all related to the handicap. It was about winning a match but only winning it by a certain amount. And it's these type of markets that are more so, I think they're more so under scrutiny in this case. I can't say it 100% for certain, but again, from my understanding of the knowledge of people who have a sort of a certain awareness of what's happening here, that's coming under it. And again, people wonder how this comes to light. I mean, you would have a situation whereby bookmakers would have a normal expectation for what traffic would be on a market in a particular game, so you could have, say, a Champions League final where due to the sheer volume of people watching it, you'll probably have huge amounts being traded on that. But clearly when you have slightly lower profile games, and then in specific markets that will be low traffic, there's suddenly a high volume of traffic. Well, that's all recorded, and there's generally this thing, like, it's a memorandum of understanding between bookmakers and, say, governing bodies that they have to report that if those irregularities. Now, there have been cases in the past where there's stuff with the Asian markets as well, and that's another area. Not in this instance, I don't believe.
And do we know where the bets were placed from?
There has been some reporting today, and it's not mine, but I actually saw this in an RTE report suggesting that there was a particular area of the country where there was a high volume of bets. And again, I mean, there's always this element of, what you can say versus, what in the sense that, and it has been reported today, and I've written it as such, like, this does centre around the activity of one club. This is not the case whereby, for example, as far as I'm aware, like there's 2 teams in a particular game, and you're looking at people from both teams and stuff. I think this investigation, and from the profile of the people that have, that have been questioned, it would again all people who would be linked with one club.
And do you have a sense of how many incidents we're talking about?
This is the slightly grey area, because there's different reports suggesting that it's relating to just matches from 2019, and again, at various times around that time there would have been, say, reportage around particular games, but certainly from what I gather anyway, and maybe the scope of this has broadened, that I think it does go back to games a couple of years previously, as opposed to just, say, a handful of games in 2019.
Okay.
I think there might be more. It does appear again that like phones and various things have been taken. So I don't know. You might start from somewhere, and then it could lead you to a different place.
And then just one last point. So 10 arrests today. There is anonymity.
Yeah.
Anonymity, clearly. When would that change? If there were charges brought?
Yeah, I think that would be. I'm no expert on sort of the legal procedures, but I suppose you're looking at previous instances. That would be the thing, and obviously initially, people are brought in for 24 hours of questioning, and then I suppose everyone goes away, and I don't know, the consequences of those discussions probably lead to files being prepared, or some kind of further action, if any, and it goes from there. So you can never predict the course of events, because you don't know. I would assume that the quality of the information you have or don't have will naturally dictate your ability to bring something to the table quicker. But certainly I would have, in the foreseeable, I can't imagine that people would be named, but again, I'm no expert in how this process plays itself out. Okay.
Well, thanks for that update. We'll come back to it on the football show, I suspect. We should get into the news round proper then. It is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Cathal Mullaney, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with today's boxing success for Irish boxers at the World Boxing Championships in Turkey. Amy Broadhurst and Lisa O'Rourke both through to finals at that event. Dundalk's Broadhurst won 4-1 on a split decision in her light welterweight semi-final against Parveen of India, and Roscommon native O'Rourke was a unanimous winner against home favourite Sema Chalishkan in the last 4 of the light middleweight division. Broadhurst will fight Algeria's Iman Khalef in their final tomorrow evening, while O'Rourke is set to go up against Alcinda Helena Panguan of Mozambique. They're following in the footsteps of Katie Taylor and Kelly Harrington in fighting in World Championship finals.
Yeah, they sure are. I didn't see this fight. I was in transit at the time, but arriving into the office, everybody had been watching it, and the performances of Amy Broadhurst and Lisa O'Rourke were reportedly awesome. So this brilliant culture that we have is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I saw Neil O'Riordan reference this as well. A couple of us, I think after Dundalk won the league, I think it was 2018, and they had a league-winning night, and we were in the tunnel in Oriel Park speaking to Stephen Kenny, and there was a girl nearby who was sort of hovering around, I think trying to get. I'd obviously been instructed to wait around to sort of get his attention, or there was someone was really urging him to have a discussion. And I was there. I think she came up and sort of half introduced herself. It was Amy Broadhurst coming up to say, and I think Kenny twigged who it was and gave her a pep talk for whatever her next fight was at that stage. And there's a photo that was posted today of the two of them together in the tunnel. Nice. So I always sort of remember that. But yeah, I mean, they are in the shadow of a lot of what's going on, and I don't think it's hard to get on top of some of the stuff that's going on with the boxing organisation in recent days. Yet, like, it just shows that like the athletes keep performing, and they obviously should be better served by the country where they operate.
The Stephen Kenny magic touch knows no bounds.
Yeah,
what else has he done, Dan?
I'm not going to extend this to well, it was clearly that discussion that day that just
fork in the road
changed her life.
And now, Cathal, Dan is such nervous this evening. His beloved Rangers in action.
Yeah, that's right. They're in Europa League final action tonight. They bid for their second ever European trophy. The Scottish Premiership side take on Eintracht Frankfurt in that decider. Rangers' last European success was their triumph in the Cup Winners' Cup back in 1972. And their manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst says the support from their fans so far in the tournament has been a big part of their success, and he's expecting more of the same tonight in Seville.
Our fans are supporting us really, really well, and of course Ibrox is a huge factor, and then in the ties we played this season in Europe. We knew to get a good result away from home and take back to us to Ibrox that we are capable of winning against any team. Of course, the final is different because it's only one game you play, not at Ibrox, but in Seville. I think we will both feel that. So, it's different, but still, I think you will hear them a lot tomorrow, our fans, and I think our performances can be good as well. So I'm really, I think we are ready, and we will play the way we always do, and make sure we give everything we have to make sure we're going to win this game.
Yeah, kick off this evening, 8 o'clock. I got a withering look there from Dan McDonnell after my very lame gag. I felt it had been a heavy start to the news round. I just thought we needed something. It wasn't my best effort.
That's the kind of high caliber banter that wins you awards, is it? Irish man couldn't possibly want Rangers to win. Yeah, let's go to that old trope and see where it takes us.
Were you a Celtic fan growing up?
Not especially, no. Like I definitely probably went through that phase of when when Celtic had that sort of run of misery. I remember that time with Paul Byrne from Dublin scored the equaliser for Celtic in an Old Firm game at the time when Celtic weren't winning anything at all really in the early 90s. I remember being overjoyed by that and supporting them at that stage, but nah, I'd be pretty indifferent to it now in recent years. And I know there's a lot of Celtic fans out there who will be praying that Rangers do not win this game. I mean,
agnostic.
I just it just doesn't. And I'm well aware of the reasons why people would feel strongly about them. It's just not something that necessarily particularly energises me, I have to say. But I must say the Europa League semi-final scenes in both stadiums. People can sort of denigrate the Europa League and that's fine, but the sheer euphoria of the Eintracht Frankfurt fans and the Rangers fans, whatever you make of them, was incredible. Yeah. It was this is why these secondary competitions. These are the type of clubs that should contest these finals, not Manchester United. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Teams that are in afterthought territory, and that's why
it's a highlight for them.
It's a good European final in that context.
It will be the worst gag I make at your expense between now and 10 o'clock. I promise.
Here's hoping, John.
Yeah,
that's what 2 hours 40 minutes.
Yeah, no guarantees.
Warm in here.
So, well, speaking of fans and losing the run of themselves, I think most have seen the footage by this stage on social media. It was reprehensible.
Yeah, that's right. A man's been arrested on suspicion of assault after Sheffield United captain Billy Sharp was headbutted on the pitch at the City Ground last night. It happened as Nottingham Forest fans spilled from the stands at the end of their Championship playoff semi-final win over the Blades after a dramatic penalty shootout. Sharp wasn't even playing because of injury, but his manager has said he needed stitches after last night's incident. In a social media post, Sharp described the fan that dished out the headbutt as a mindless idiot and a scumbag, and he went on to wish Nottingham Forest well in the playoff final against Huddersfield Town.
You were watching this game last night?
I was, yeah. I did flick over to it. Once Liverpool equalised, I sort of felt they were just always going to win. And I was more interested in when John Egan was involved in the Sheffield United game and Conor Hourihane come off the bench and stuff. But just the Championship, again, the games mean so much, and
how did the television cover this incident?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't catch this. There was a big invasion at the time, but I think it only come out subsequently.
Yeah, I think it was just
press conference afterwards.
I saw a social media clip where it's just at the bottom of the picture where you can see the fan kind of running towards him on the sideline. But I mean, Sharp is just standing there taking in everything that's happening on the pitch. I mean, nothing provocative at all. Yeah. And this guy just basically runs through him.
No, totally blindsided.
Yeah,
as well.
The pitch invasion was just presented initially as euphoria, which it was, because I mean Forest had completely frozen in the game. It was like their worst nightmare unfolding. The whole stadium was on edge, and then they won the penalty shootout. It was pandemonium, and that club hasn't been in the Premier League, this century. So there was this outpouring, but a lot of these playoff games, they have these big invasions at the end of it, and sometimes you're just going to have a tipping point incident that does lead to some kind of sanction. And we're seeing a lot of various antisocial activity at games at various levels and codes in recent times, and it does come to the point where it's it is one idiot and it's really unfortunate, but do you have to do something that has implications, whether it be next season or something, because you have to have some form of deterrent.
Well, you have to protect, above all else, you have to protect the protagonists involved. And it's not about this incident. I stress that. I couldn't stress that more. But what popped into my head was we did a piece with I think it was, Mick, you'd remember outside, it was about the drug use of fans and cocaine being found on trains going to matches right now and how it's on the up. And this wasn't just anecdotal. This journalist, it was a great piece. He had spent time with the UK police forces at various grounds around the country, and they were all saying drug use is massively on the up. We're seeing increased antisocial behaviour. We're seeing trains trashed on a Saturday where Matt Slater, I think, says.
I think
Mick,
that was my thought as well. Yeah,
and we're seeing sniffer dogs waiting for fans getting off trains increasingly. I stress. Legally, very important to say. I don't think, or how could I possibly know if that has anything to do with last night's incidents? But it does feed into this overall sense of misbehaviour amongst fans in the UK on the up, and that was the sense of the police force as well, actually. So, I mean, geez, it's not often you see a running headbutt, is it, in life? No, and like, right. I mean, it is caught on camera. It was always going to be caught on camera, so it is sort of mindless in that regard. But no, it is true. Like, and again, you don't want to be sort of too. What's the word? Like, you don't want to be saying, "Oh, these pitch invasions are terrible." In some respects, they're great moments to see it, and like something natural about it that you don't want to take out of it. But if it spills over into this, well, then they're just going to be stopped. Well, I suppose the difficult question, if you're the football authorities, how many moments like last night can you absorb and allow for to continue letting pitch invasions happen?
0, I would say.
1 in 100. I mean, it could be, again, I'm not being this, but that could have been a serious episode. What if his injuries were more serious?
Absolutely.
It's
a
completely different discussion. Even 1 in 100 seems like one too many. So, I don't know. They're in a difficult position now. We'll chat about that in the football show. I mean, you also do see footage of the stewards. What can you do if everyone's taking off and running? If that's, in the culture and people are leaving their seats and hopping the fence, it's touch tricky. So Southern Hills will be chatting to Jeff Shackelford 7:30. Tiger Woods amongst those there.
Yeah, and he believes he can win this week's US PGA Championship. The 15-time major winner plays for just the second time since sustaining serious leg injuries in a car accident last year. He made his comeback, of course, at the Masters, where he made the cut but faded after the first round. Woods will tee off alongside Rory McIlroy and Grand Slam chasing Jordan Spieth in tomorrow's opening round, and having won the PGA at the Tulsa venue in 2007, Woods says he's confident he can contend as he's getting physically stronger.
I know how to play the golf course if I can just putt well. You never know. Unfortunately, Saturday I think I had like 15 3-putts. But it was one of those things that the thing that I was frustrated with is that it deteriorated as the week went on. I got more and more tired and more fatigued. I didn't have the endurance that I wanted. And now, I mean, I shouldn't expect it because I didn't earn it. I didn't go out there and I haven't done the work, but we're able to put in a little bit more work, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. So as the months pass, and it's going to get better.
Tiger.
Yeah, I have to, when I was watching the press conference for Augusta, some of the stuff around that, like someone eventually did ask it. It was like, is this pain going to get any better? Because he was painting a sort of a grim picture of his mobility, and it was the obvious question that was eventually asked. Well, is this it? Yeah. Like, is this as far as he can go? And now you're starting to hear him say, "Yeah, as you said, maybe I could be a little bit better." And it just makes you think.
Starting to get very interested in
St Andrews. You see, which is such a generous terrain.
Distance isn't an issue.
That's the one.
That is the one.
Yeah,
that is the one. Yeah, 2-time winner there. So we're going to talk to Jeff Shackelford, who's over at Southern Hills and has been following Woods actually for the last couple of days as well. He's going to join us very soon. Matt Lawton, by the way, that piece, Matt Lawton. So if you Google Matt Lawton drugs fans, then you'll find our piece with him and his piece as well online. It's really well worth a read, and he was very good on the show as well, so you'll be able to watch that back if you're interested. Cathal Mullaney, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Dan McDonnell staying with us for the evening. We're taking a short break.